two guests with us today. We have two guests, wonderful guests with us today. We have Dr. Rose Mutiso, who is an applied physicist, and also Dr. Chao, and just wait to you, who is a computer scientist. Okay, and we are here from talk to you about research and Africa Science Week. So the floor is yours.
Thanks, Richie. Yeah, so my name is Rose. Okay, just pause it for a second. Yeah, so my name is Rose Mutiso. I run a research institute called Mawazo Institute, or Ideas Institute, and we support women doing PhD and post-PhD research in Kenya. So we have women at JQuad, Kenyatta, University of Nairobi, Egerton, everywhere. And we are really trying to push more women to get credentials, build expertise, become scholars, academics. But we don't want to stop there. It's not enough to just soma, have books, be book smart. You need to be influencing society. Your ideas, your research needs to be making it into the public, whether it's an innovation, like what you guys are doing, whether you're influencing policy decision making, helping the government decide better based on your research, whether it's just educating the public, which is part of what we're doing now. So this week, we're running what is called Africa Science Week Kenya, and you guys are part of it, so surprise, you're part of Africa Science Week. Yeah. So Lola, who you guys know, is a good friend of mine. Both of us really care about innovation, really care about young people, really care about women and men. The men here are fine because we fall under you. The men who are not under you. Anyway, so when I was talking to Lola, I told her, well, Mawazo Institute is leading this initiative called Africa Science Week. It's part of a Pan-African initiative, so there are science weeks going on in 35 countries all over Africa. And so we are really the one here. So I told Lola, and she said, well, we're having our kids come here, our teenagers from all over Kenya for our innovation camp. How can we collaborate? And so what we ended up doing, because Mawazo, our mission and our work is around research, we thought we could collaborate, come together, and deliver a research module. That's where Dr. Chao is here, and I'll introduce her properly later. But first, if you're wondering what Science Week is, what this is about that you're part of, let me play a video. Africa Science Week is an initiative of the Next Einstein Forum taking place in 35 countries across the continent. The 2018 Kenyan edition of the event will take place from December 3rd to 7th, 2018, and is sponsored by the L'Oreal Foundation, Johnson & Johnson Innovation, and the Mawazo Institute. During that week, activities will take place all over the country, showcasing science at work in different areas of Kenyan society.
The cornerstone of Africa Science Week Kenya is our Faces of Kenyan Science campaign that features 20 exceptional Kenyan scientists. Using creative platforms including podcasts, storytelling, and an ebook, we'll be sharing their science journeys and their groundbreaking work. To kick off the week's activities, on Monday, we're inviting representatives from Kenya's science community for a launch event, celebrating our Faces of Kenyan Science and featuring showcases by young innovators. On Tuesday, we will be hosting a lively moderated debate on the state of Kenya's booming technology sector as part of Nairobi Ideas Night, a recurring event organized by Mawazo Institute that offers local researchers, scholars, and self-identifying nerds an informal and engaging platform to present their ideas to the public.
On Wednesday, we focus on women in science in Kenya with 2 events. In the morning, we host a Women in Science Leadership Breakfast featuring 5 accomplished women scientists who will share their career insights with us, followed by an interactive networking session. Then in the evening, 6 women from our Faces of Kenyan Science campaign will share their stories with us during Nairobi Ideas Night, Stories Behind the Science event. Join us as we hear the phenomenal glass ceiling breaking and truly growing moments of making it in science as a woman.
Because Africa Science Week Kenya is interested in getting young Kenyans excited about science, we have teamed up with the African Mawazo Initiative to bring together 40 secondary school girls for a week-long math camp led by math experts and local volunteers. We are also supporting the Global Minimum Innovation Camp for high schoolers by delivering a module on research skills.
Africa Science Week aims to challenge misconceptions regarding the who, the what, and the why of science, as well as demonstrate that science is interesting, acceptable. That's not a very flattering pose, it's okay. Okay, what I was going to say is we are the mission of this Science Week is to demonstrate that science is interesting, accessible, important, and it's for everyone. And so this is why we have these t-shirts that say Science Matters. It matters in our lives. You guys, I'm sure you understand that. That's why you're doing this camp. Eric, how many t-shirts do we have? Three? Okay, we have 3 t-shirts. So in the course of the module, Dr. Mbogo, this is on you. Test them. Sprinkle 3 questions and 3 people will win a t-shirt. We have some buttons also, and so anyway, we have some goodies for you just to reinforce that you're part of this Science Week. And we're so excited to be collaborating with you guys. We're really thrilled about the young people. Like you saw in the video, we also have a group in Kitale now, 40 girls from all over Kenya doing a mathematics camp. I don't know how many of you guys like math, Kasabu? Okay. So this camp is pretty intense. At least you guys are mixing it up to go with innovation and some stuff. Then they're just doing mathematics the whole week. But it's really fun. They're learning about maths, how it applies to robotics, to cryptography, to all of these things. Anyway, there's a second video. I don't really want to play it except to say, like in the video was mentioned, one of our cornerstone activities of Science Week is called the Faces of Kenyan Science campaign. This is a campaign profiling 20 Kenyan scientists from diverse backgrounds who embody that spirit of excellence, but the spirit of accessibility of science and the impact of science. I'm very honored to recognize Dr. Chao, who is one of our 20 Faces of Kenyan Science. She's a computer scientist. She's a computer scientist, the head of computer science at Kenya Methodist University. And she's an entrepreneur. She's innovated a number of tech solutions that have been taken up in South Africa and here. She's also a mentor, so she has a mentorship program for women and men university age in computer science that is really growing, really thriving. And I'm so pleased to be able to introduce her as your facilitator for this research module. So, welcome, Chao.
So, as we wait, anyone want to lead us in the icebreaker? Do you have one? Ah, nice. Shall we just do this?
Ready?
So ideally we do this until there's only one person remaining. So it's a game of honesty, right? If I say sit down if you haven't eaten a fruit today, you sit down if you actually haven't eaten up today. Okay, so let's stand up, please. Okay, so sit down if today is your birthday. Okay, sit down if you're an only child. Sit down if you're the last one. Sit down if you have more than 5 siblings. Alright. Sit down if you have fallen asleep in class more than 5 times this year. Okay, sit down if you're wearing anything maroon. Okay, sit down if you do not know any of the founders of Microsoft. If you do not know, who's one of the founders? Sorry? Bill Gates. Alright, sit down if you have not drank more than 3 glasses of water today. Alright, sit down, so we're left with about 7 people. So sit down if you're an exact look-alike to either parent. If you like, usually people see you together. Okay. Sit down. So we have just 5. Sit down if. Sit down if you've ever invented or coded anything and put it on Google Play. Sit down if you know more than one programming language. More than one programming language. Okay, so sit down if you've ever attended any other research course before, other than this one. Okay, so just correct. 3. Sorry, all. Alright, so somebody ask a question. Sit down if
you're wearing a sweater.
So we shouldn't do anything biased that is. Alright, anyone else sit down if you are not done? Sit down if you are the second one. Okay, so sit down if you are the second one. Right, so 2 left. Any other questions?
Now, if you go to be 3 and above in maths.
hour and 10 minutes, talking about research and why research is important, especially in innovation, because I went through some of the innovations that have come from some of your groups, and they're really cool. So today we're going to understand how do you tie research to innovation, or to some of the work that you've already done. So I will not introduce myself again. Rose and Ricky already did that. So I'll just skip that. But today we are going to understand a couple of things, why research is important for innovation, and you are doing Innovation Week or Innovation Camp, so it's important to understand that. We're going to look at some of the very basic principles of research and how that ties to the work. We look at some practical examples and examples that can help you understand principles of research. And using my own example of work that I've done, we're going to see how to apply research to innovation. And the reason why this is important is because if you are learning how to do impactful research that is long-lasting, that is going to impact the communities you're developing for or the users you're developing for, it's actually very important to tie that to research. And that is why we are here today. Time permitting, at the end, we'll have you work in your groups and just think about, give examples of using your innovations of the things that we've learned today, and then we'll end the session on that note. So one of the things that you hear a lot, especially because you're all in school now, I think majority of the people in the room are, is that research and academia, or what we learn in school, is not tied to the innovations in the real world. How many of you have heard about that before? Okay, so at university level, we hear that a lot, that what people innovate in the industry or in the tech industry is not tied to what we teach. And so one of the reasons why I teach this class is to understand how do we tie research that we learn and tie that to actual real-life innovations in the world so that it impacts people. And that's a fundamental principle that I work with. And also just so that we can be able to understand how to use the skills that we learned today to continue with the innovations that we've already started. And on a scale of the national scale, there is actually a policy in the Science and Technology Ministry that guides research and innovation. So even if you're looking for a national reason why you should be able to tie your research innovation, there is a policy that guides that. And if anything, that should be a motivation for you to continue to link your work to research. And so that is the background of what we are going to do today. Now, one of the ways that you're going to start thinking about research is the first question I'd like to ask anyone in the room. So I have 2 teachers to give. At the end of the hour or hour and a half, I'll pick which of the 2 answers was some of the best. And so the first thing is, if you're going to innovate anything, the place to start is to ask yourself, what is a problem that really bothers you in the society? There are problems that you see among your community, among even if the one that you've experienced yourself, or among the users you work with, or even just at home in your family that really bothers you. So what are some of the problems that you've seen in the society, your school, or at home that have really bothered you? Yes. What's your name?
Maxwell.
Yes. Which problem?
Pollution.
Air pollution? What about it?
I've seen it affect my classmates.
How?
Because you see from the kitchen,
Yeah.
there's a lot of smoke and some are asthmatic.
Oh, you mean like the school kitchen, for example?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Road accidents.
All right.
Currently, especially this year, we've had a lot of road accidents. Due to a lot of reasons.
Okay. Well, one of them is, for example, one
Careless driving by drivers.
or drunk driving, for example. Okay. I saw a hand over here.
Unemployment.
Uh-huh.
Unemployment is a major problem in the community because the number of illiterate people is higher than those who are literate.
Yeah.
So many people are make them engage in crimes and such things.
Okay. One last. Yes.
One major problem I've seen is abuse of drugs. Like most of my friends are either taking bam or drunkards, so you find that people who are growing up to take up the mantle of, let's say, leadership, bring the country, they're not going to up to standards.
Yeah. So, so you notice that our society on its own has so many problems that we're dealing with. That has very many problems that we're dealing with. So we have very many problems that we are dealing with in our society, and so we have one of the best things I like about where we live, which is Kenya, Africa, is that even though we have our own issues, but that creates a very interesting ground for scientists like such as yourself and such as myself, because then that means we have more opportunities to offer solutions. So all these issues that have been raised, from unemployment to pollution to drunk driving or careless driving leading to road accidents, are actually societal issues that bother us every day and that we have to deal with every day, or that our loved ones have to deal with. And so that is perfect to create solutions. And so the starting point for research, hence innovation, is actually picking a problem that really bothers you and that you're interested in. And from there now we can build on how do you take that problem and then leading it to innovation. So we are first going to look at some of the basics of research. As we go along, we'll tie it to different practical examples. And then obviously, if you have any questions, just stop me along the way. So the first question I have is, what do you understand by research? If you hear research, what is it? Actually, let me start with what is innovation. Now that you are in an innovation camp, what are you doing? Or what is innovation? What is innovation? Marco?
Coming up with new ideas to solve problems that the community faces.
Okay, so coming up with technology. So coming up with new ideas to solve problems that the community faces with technology. Now, if you think about that definition, research is actually not far from that definition, because if you look at what research is, then it is a process of investigating something so that you can uncover something interesting, you uncover facts, you uncover relationships between one thing and the other, or just to show how one thing relates to the other. So what I mean by causal statements is, does one thing lead to another? So for example, does pollution lead to increased asthma attacks? That would be a relationship. So maybe you want to find out, if people don't eat well in school, does it lead to lower performance? So you can't find that out until you conduct some form of research. Okay? Or in your case, now innovations, you build something, but how do you know that it's going to work? How do you know that the application that you built is going to help students spend time to study more in say, mathematics? It means you have to first build something, and then you give it to students to use, and then in the end you test something and find out, have their grades changed from X and Y. That is research. So innovation ties to research very nicely, because you'll use something, in this case the applications that you built, to find out if A causes B, or if it helps with the aim that you have intended. So that is how research and innovation work together. Okay, so let's use the weight of a child as an example. So we've defined research in three things. It can either be to uncover a fact. The fact could be what is the number of road accidents that happened on Kiambu Road in 1 week. That is a fact. You want to find out, is it 10, is it 0, is it 5? So that's a fact. So you can use research to discover a fact. So now, using the example of the weight of a child, you can simply want to find out what is the average weight of a 10-year-old child. So you have to look for an instrument, have several 10-year-old kids step on it, and then you calculate the average. What you've actually done there is research. And you can try and find out active relationship. So research, the words in bold are just examples of what you can do with research. So you can find out a fact. You can also be determining relationship. So does the weight of a child affect how active they are? You actually cannot answer yes or no to that. You have to take several children of different weights, then you see how active they are. And then you also have to use additional information to find out what affects the activity. Because sometimes, maybe it's not only the weight. Maybe they have a sickness that's not helping them become active, even though they have less weight. So you have to think of all the variables that will be a factor in that situation. And then you can try to establish the relationship between weight and activity. So maybe your statement is that children who play outside and those who play, say, video games inside, they weigh less. But how do you know that? You have to probably observe children who play outside and those who play inside. But again, you have to think of all other factors that might contribute to that. So these are all examples of things you can do with research. But the important thing is that in there's an instrument you have to use. In your case, it's probably an innovation that you're trying to test either a fact, a relationship, or a relationship between one or two things. So that means that there are different things that you can do with research. You can categorize, you can describe, you can explain, you can evaluate, you can compare, you can predict. So for example, weather forecast. How do you know that it's gonna rain tomorrow? So that's a culmination of different data over time that then informs that if the clouds look this way, then it's going to rain. Because over time, different information has informed that if something does this, then it will rain. So we can use research to predict, and we can also use research to control. So maybe you want to conduct research so that you can now propose a control for something. So how do you know, for example, that a vaccine works? There has to be research that is conducted, and then you can propose that vaccine A can be used to control this disease or the other. So all these are things that we can be able to do with research using our innovation. So I'll quickly, before we start having a more interactive session, I'll quickly go through different types of research for your information, and also so that you know what kind of research that you're going to conduct. So one common type is you can either have a descriptive research versus analytical research, where descriptive simply involves fact-finding. So you'd like to know what is the population of this particular village or this particular country. Then you'll go about finding that fact, and then you describe that particular situation. Or you can do analytical information where you already have facts. Now you have to use the facts that are there to analyze that situation and to make conclusions about it. The other type of research is between applied and fundamental research, where applied is finding a solution for something facing the society. So assume that you built your app or you built an innovation that controls, that detects if there's a fire in the house. Then you'll actually have to apply that to people who are living in houses in order for you to find out if your innovation is the one that is causing less fires, for example. Or we can talk about fundamental research. So if you hear of you are trying to just formulate a theory, so for example, mathematical theories, which you've all learned in school, that is actually fundamental research. Because mathematical theory, as you know, is about generalization. A formula is a generalization of, because you can apply any number to a formula, correct? So that's a fundamental, well, coming up with that formula is fundamental research, because if generalizes something, then you plug in different numbers. Y is equal to, what is that formula for a linear line? Yeah, so y is equal to mx plus c. You can have any number can be x, any can be there, any can be y. We can also have quantitative and qualitative research. So quantitative involves numbers. For example, how many people use your application that you just built? You want to know, is it 5 people, is it 5,000, is it 5 million? That's quantitative research, because you want to find out how many people who use your application click on the help button. You want to find out that so that you know if people are actually using that feature or not. How many people have been helped using your application? How many? So if you're building an application that is supposed to help students study mathematics, how many students' grades have improved because of using your application? So you see, that's a number. So that's quantitative. Whereas if you talk about qualitative, that is what people tell you. So for example, if you're going to look for feedback on what do people say about this particular button on my application, or M-Pesa, for example, most of us have used or use M-Pesa. So if Safaricom wants to find out what we feel about Okoa Jahazi, see, that's not a number. You have to tell them, I don't like Okoa Jahazi because it makes me have debt, or the charges are too much. That's qualitative feedback, and what Safaricom has done is qualitative research, because that's not a number. They just find out how users are saying about things or how they're interacting with things. So that's the difference between quantitative and qualitative. And sometimes most research has both. So you can actually have both in a single research. And the other typical example is conceptual versus empirical. So conceptual, again, it's when we are simply working with theories. Or so philosophers, for example, when people say we have a famous philosopher who said this that we are now applying to this situation, that's conceptual research. Whereas empirical, so let's assume that you build an application that, again, is supposed to help students pass mathematics. How will you know that it helps them pass mathematics? The only way you know is if you give the students the application, measure what they got in maths before the application, and then they use the application, say, for 1 year, and then at the end you measure again what do they have in maths. What you'll have done is empirical research, because you'll be finding out something from point A to point B using an innovation. So empirical research also, sometimes you'll find it's called experimental. So that those two words are interchanging. Is there any question in the back? Okay, so if you have a question at any point, just raise your hand. So we're going to go through the steps of conducting research. And at this point, I'd like you to think about the innovations that you come up with and see what else you can do to make them even more impactful. So the first, as we already said, start with an observation. So an observation is there are many road accidents, say, on Kiambu Road because of drunk drivers. Or there's unemployment in my town because people are not literate. Or there's pollution in my school because of smoke. So that's an observation or a question. So you start from there, and usually that's what we call a problem. So just a quick round in the room, the innovations that you worked on, what is the problem that you're trying to address? Yes. Okay, so what's the name of your innovation? Eco purifier, okay. Any other group? What is the problem that you are trying to address? I think I saw about 7 or 8 or 10 innovations. So what is the problem that you are trying to address? Yes.
Our project is traffic sensor.
Okay.
The problem is overspeeding.
Overspeeding. Okay. Right. Any other group? Yes.
Our problem is.
Oh, sorry. It's fine. I'll come back to you.
Our problem is losing of the keys and the.
Sorry. Say that again.
Losing keys.
Losing keys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pressure.
All right. So you know so it's like the way at home we keep losing.
Yeah, you can detect the whereabouts of the keys.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yes, sir?
Our project is Mbogho. We are trying to solve mismanagement of funds
Where? At what level?
at schools.
At schools. So at school administration or among students?
Students.
So like you're given pocket money and then. Okay. Cool. Any other? Yes. Time management, is that for students or? Okay. Alright, so all these are problems that are basically, so with that, with everything that you've just said, we are going to go step by step and see how we can now expand from problem to innovation and add now research in between. So that now we can make, obviously we can understand what we are doing even more. And then from after you have a problem, the next step is to refine the idea, and I'm going to give you an example of how you can do that. Especially because for most of you, I saw from your program that you're being taught how to pitch, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you need, some of these principles you're learning today will help you also prepare for that, because you need to explain more than just, the problem is losing items at home and this is the innovation. There has to be an in-between, and hopefully this will help with that as well. So from refining the idea, we need to find out what else have other people done. Because chances are either someone else or there's another group or someone has written about something similar to yours. You have to understand why yours is different or potentially better. So it is very important to understand what else is there, and this usually helps with building your idea. And then from there we formulate something called hypothesis. So I'm going to use examples to run that. And then run experiments. For you, running experiments would mean building your app, giving it to users so that they try. That is an experiment. Because you have to actually have people use your application and give you feedback for you to know if it's useful. And that is what the experiment is. And then from there, you obviously want to understand the data. Okay, so people have told you this and that, people are not using the application, you want to understand why people are not using the application. And this will help you know solution. So for example, using M-Pesa again. M-Pesa has an app called My App, My Safaricom. I think, and this is completely just out of my own, there's no research I'm referring to, but I think more people use the application that's on the phone, you know, the old one, the one with SIM cards, than My Safaricom app. So ideally, Safaricom may want to understand why that is the case. Why are people using My Safaricom app more than the traditional SIM card access? So with these steps, then we'll do an exercise later where I'd like you to actually think about the different steps. So I'm going to give now examples of each of these steps. And I'm going to use my own research that I've done. So starting with the first step, which is a problem. So one of the problems that really bothered me is the fact that programming seems to be difficult, especially for people who are starting to learn programming for the first time at university level. And I encountered this when I was teaching programming in Java. So how many of you have done Java before? People are the best. Anyone in the room who's done Java? What languages have you guys learned? You've learned C++, any other? Okay, so Java is one of the programming languages that is usually A programming language like Python, which you might learn and go on, is simpler to start with than a programming language like Java. So the problem that really bothered me is when I'm teaching first year students Java programming language, a lot of the students seem to have been struggling with that subject. And then that really bothered me, because as someone who's teaching programming language, I want people to be able to learn it the best way as possible. So that was my problem. So the next thing, remember the next step I said is defining the idea. Now you can refine the idea in different ways, but one of the best ones is to find something in real life that applies to your problem. So remember, my problem is I'm concerned that new students of Java are struggling to learn the subject. So what I thought about is what in real life relates to the fact that there's a new student who's trying to learn something. And what I could come up with is, imagine a child who's learning how to walk. One way that a child can learn how to walk is if someone is holding their hand, correct? In this case, my student is a child who's learning how to walk. And someone ideally should hold their hands until the child is stable enough, and then they can be let go. So this is a real life scenario that I thought of. The other example is building a house. You've seen that when houses are being built, there's usually structures around it. What are they called? What are they called? What are they called? I've had someone whisper something that's almost, maybe I explain. Say that thing. Actually, just say it. You're on the right track. Who said that? Somebody said that, yeah?
Scaffold.
Scaffolds. So you see those things that you see around structures. They're called scaffolds. They help construction workers get to higher parts of the building.